In this video, I'll be reacting to Dr. Mike Israetel teaching Jeff Nippard how to train his arms, even though Jeff has bigger arms than him as a natty. So we'll see how it goes.
So our first exercise is the overhead tricep cable extension. This overhead version does hit the long head of the triceps a little bit more.
So I was a big believer in overhead extensions for the long head of the triceps. I spammed them into the fucking oblivion and I had a pretty good long head, but the latest research shows us that overhead extension is more so a lateral to medial head biased tricep exercise, and to bias the long head of the triceps maximally, you want to do a push down variation where the arms beside your body, as the long head of the triceps has the best leverage to produce force and therefore will get the best possible stimulus in that arm position. But even if you could target the long head of the triceps better with a normal push down variation by the latest research, you will still hit your long head pretty damn well with an overhead extension if you perform it correctly, which he is not doing here, which I will go in a bit more detail in a few seconds.
But I think that focusing on long head of the triceps is massively overrated in general, because almost every compound pulling movement, pull-ups especially, rows and things like that, will hit your long head a ton.
This is one of the worst arm training advice I've ever heard if you actually want your arms to look fucking massive. The long head of the triceps is the medius part of your fucking arm. It is the most important muscle to make your arms look massive and therefore should get the highest priority in your arm training. Why would you take advice from someone who, first of all, has no long head of the triceps? A natural lifter who's not even training for 10 years is literally mocking him. I am only doing long head bias pushdowns. I don't perform any exercises that specifically bias the lateral and medial head of the triceps. So please don't listen to him. He's straight up yapping. Keep doing your long head bias exercises. So the long head of the triceps is active and is doing some work in overhead movements like the pull-up or lat pull-downs, as Dr. Mike has mentioned. But to say that your back exercise will hit your long head of the triceps a ton and therefore implying that it will grow is just not true. The only back exercise that will target the long head of the triceps pretty damn well is the dumbbell pullover, which is actually a long head of the triceps and also chest exercise, as those muscle groups have a better leverage to produce force and therefore will get a better stimulus in the stretch position compared to the lats, which makes it a long head exercise by default.
And so I don't worry about triceps heads a bunch.
Dr. Mike, to bring up your arms and make them look good compared to the rest of your body, which is fucking jacked, you should worry about your long head.
This is the only exercise in this session that we'll do in a conventional straight set style. All the others, we got twists and tricks and who knows what else. To be honest, I don't even know what the fuck we're doing. I'm just making this up on the spot.
Doing standard straight sets, not adding any fancy intensifiers to make your arm workout get more clicks and make it look more fancy, is the best possible way to train your arms and also your whole body specifically, as straight sets give you much better stimulus on a set per set basis, and it also creates much less fatigue compared to any fancy intensifier, which means that you will get a better stimulus fatigue ratio for every fucking set that you do.
So see a lot of people do a French press.
Yeah.
So you see it like this usually.
Yeah.
I think you get more of a stretch if you're actually like dropping the scapula down.
Oh yeah? Okay.
And putting your head forward a tad as you come in. If you're here, getting the head out of the way, getting a huge stretch on the triceps. So it's still up and back like normal.
So as I said in the beginning, you can perform the overhead extension as a long hand bias exercise if you perform it correctly, which is if you stay with your upper arm in a fixed position and just focus on elbow extension without moving your arms at the shoulder joint like Israetel is doing here, you will target the long head to some extent compared to this variation where Israetel is performing it in a jam press style. Is no bueno for the long head of the triceps, as it's suffering from antagonistic inhibition, which simply means that the long head of the triceps is lengthening at one joint while shortening at the other, resulting in no actual stimulus for the long head itself. That is why the jam press is a great fucking lateral medial head exercise, as the long head gets deactivated while the muscle activation levels for the other heads are at the peak. And as I said, this variation of the overhead extension is just a worse variation of a jam press.
But big key points are like forcing those elbows in, and even on the way up, forcing them in. So
forcing your elbows to be in a tucked position instead of letting them naturally move where they fucking want to move is a great fucking tip for getting joint discomfort and also joint pain in the long run.
Move, Jeff. Finish. Almost
What's my RIR on that, Mike?
12.
No way. You think I had 12 more reps on that set?
If you knew how to train hard.
Let's take some training intensity advice from someone who's training with 10 fucking reps in reserve while still screaming like a fucking Dr. Mike is projecting so fucking hard. Jeff went balls to the fucking walls.
I want a serious answer on that.
I have no idea. I almost never judge RIR externally because you never can tell how much someone is keeping in reserve psychologically.
This is straight up wrong. So if you're training to 10 reps in reserve, as Dr. Mike is doing, you can't really tell how much reps in reserve those were. We are not so different from each other. A set to failure for myself, my girlfriend, your grandmother, if we are somewhat advanced and can push ourselves to the max, looks the fucking same. The reps slow down exponentially from 2 reps in reserve to actual muscular failure. So gouging the reps in reserve, especially if you're the fucking proponent of reps in reserve training, should be fucking easy for you.
And slow
Well,
twitch.
I don't think it has much to do psychologically. I think it has to do with what my muscle, like how much force my muscle is capable of producing at the end of that set. Either I can do it or I can't, right? No?
But
With this example, it's the same basic thing.
Yeah.
If my muscles can't produce the force, they can't produce
That's
the
true,
force.
but muscles typically, though muscles are the end node of force production, the biggest factor to force production once you have a muscle of a certain cross-sectional area is how much nervous system throughput you're having. And because your degree of arousal currently is decent, but not like violence and war level, if you went to violence and war level places, you could have 5 or 6 reps more.
Disagree.
But
Bro, it's not Tom Platt.
I don't think I could have got 5 more reps no matter what.
Well, you
But
probably
I can
could.
test it. I'm the next one. So I got 12 on that one, right?
Okay, yeah, yeah.
You say you think I could have gotten 5 more reps if I went violence and war?
yeah,
Okay,
that's
I'll do it.
but that's assuming you're capable of it.
So if you're training in the 20 to 100 fucking rep zone, like Dr. Mike is doing, he's right. Your psychology and not your physiology determines how far you can push yourself to failure. As you're training to failure with high reps, you're not actually reaching actual muscular failure, but you're severely limited by your maximum tolerable perception of effort, which is more so of a psychological thing instead of a physiological one. But if you're training with lower rep ranges of, let's say, 4 to 8, with heavy fucking weights, your physiology, how strong your muscles are, how much force they can produce, absolutely determines how much reps you can do, and no other external factor like crazy music, lever wheels, screaming at you to do another rep.
What are you doing? Come on!
Will potentially increase your reps by fucking 5 reps.
You can will yourself to lift a car.
Bro, it's like, of course, but training to 10 fucking reps in reserve and still screaming, I don't know what the fuck is.
Do you do an arm day, or is this more so for like educational demonstration?
I don't do an arm day. Arm day is curious because there's not really a compelling logical reason to structure an arm day. Now, there are ways to logically structure an arm day into your plan, but I wouldn't say it's like a first principle, like obviously arm day is a thing.
What if they're a weak point, and it's something you're trying to bring up? Give yourself that arm day to really focus.
There's probably
some attention
honestly
on it.
less of an argument for an
Yeah?
arm day in that situation.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, because you would split the frequency of such that the muscles are getting hit when they need to get hit.
So even if your arms are a weak point, I would never specifically program an arm day, as it takes up a whole day, therefore reducing the frequency you could train your arms at throughout the entire week, which is no bueno, as the latest research shows us that training with a higher frequency is one of the most important programming variables to get you fucking jacked. Just 1 set 2 times per week is more hypertrophic than 8 sets done 1 time per week. I will not go too deep into the why of this topic, as I'm yapping about it in almost every single video, but let's come back to the arm portion of the high frequency arm day type of situation we are finding ourselves in. What I would rather do instead of adding a whole arm day to your program is, I would advise you to train your arms with a higher frequency. I would put your arm exercise at the very start of the session to maximize the stimulus you can get for your arms. Train them with heavy weights in the 4 to 8 rep range, and also just do enough volume to recover for the next workout and don't overdo the volume part.
So triceps probably recover a little slower than biceps, they're way smaller. So biceps would be like 4 times a week. Triceps maybe 3 times a week in that instance.
The triceps and the biceps have the same recovery rate, which is very fucking slow, one of the slowest in your whole body. So training them with a different frequency wouldn't make any sense. Just reduce the volume, keep some reps in reserve, and don't go to absolute failure on every single fucking set, and you'll be good. Contrary to popular belief, the fastest recovering muscle group is the fucking quads. Wouldn't have guessed that, huh?
Yeah.
Order of the actual exercises in the session. Like you said, maybe doing biceps before back. That's if you're gonna emphasize biceps and the back's like fine, yeah, of course you're gonna do that.
As I said, putting your bicep or tricep exercise at the start of the session is a great way to prioritize them, and your compounds won't be affected as much as you would probably think, as your biceps isn't as active as you think on a pulling movement, and the long end of the triceps, whether you're doing your long end exercise at the start of the session, won't affect your pushing exercises as much. As I said, in pushing exercises, where you're moving at the elbow joint and shoulder joint at the same time, the triceps long head isn't as activated as the other heads.
Order of exercises, exercise selection, and the frequency at which you hit them is so much more important than like, well, let's have some arm days in there.
Okay.
I completely agree. There's finally coming something productive out of these guys. I'm fucking proud.
All right, exercise number 2 is going to be the skull crusher. There are many variations of skull crusher. You can do jam style where you touch really close to your clavicles. We're going to be trying to touch the throat.
A jam press style movement is one of the best exercises for getting the lateral and medial head maximally jacked. The only con I have here is that they actually did a jam press style movement as the first exercise. As I said, it was a strange variation of it. They combined an overhead extension with a jam press and turned both of those exercises as a lesser version of their previous self. So if they were doing this on their own after doing a normal long and bias pushdown as a first exercise, this would be fucking great. But as I said,
the lengthened portion of the muscle when exposed to tension probably promotes more growth.
and the stretch portion isn't the most beneficial or hypertrophic for the triceps specifically. Every single muscle group benefits from a different resistance profile. The chest and calves, for example, want to get maximum stretch and benefit from stretch-mediated hypertrophy, but the triceps do not. To bias your lateral medial head on a jam press, you want the resistance profile to be the hardest and the lockout, so you could use some bands to your advantage to make the lockout heavier. Now for long head bias exercises, the push down, you want the resistance to be the hardest in the mid position because the long head of the triceps has the best leverage in the mid position.
After every single set, he's going to transition to a close grip bench done in the same way, also to 2/3. This is going to cook his ass.
As I said, straight sets are superior to intensifiers, but I did this in my past and it gave me a crazy fucking pump. It is not good or beneficial, but it's cool.
That's the Jeff Nippard way.
The style Jeff is doing here is more so long head bias compared to the normal standard jam press variation, as your arm is in a fixed position and you're just extending at the elbow joint, which means that the long head is not suffering from antagonistic inhibition, making it a bit more long head bias, although it's not a great long head exercise. So I would definitely do the jam press style variation that Dr. Mike and Jared are forcing him to do.
You're good?
And then down to the chin area.
Correct. Yes.
So when doing a jam press, I wouldn't use the cue of trying to reach your throat or aiming to that area. For the best possible jam press form, I would advise you to think about aiming your hands to your shoulder and doing this type of motion, as the torque you can get on your triceps will be the highest in this position. If you do this, there's no actual tension here, but here the tension is maximal due to the lever being the highest in this position.
Again.
It's really incredibly humbling as a powerlifter to have 2 5-pound plates on the bar. I will
Yes.
say that.
He's doing 5 fucking pounds on each side because Dr. Mike is forcing him to do extra fucking long eccentrics, which are not even beneficial, but actually inhibit maximum possible muscle growth. I wouldn't advise you to intentionally slow down the eccentric, but just use a tempo for that specific exercise that you're performing, which allows you to stay in control of that weight so that the weight isn't controlling you. That could look different from exercise to exercise. On a standard push down, where you're not getting crazy stretch, you're not using a lot of weight, even if you're doing 4 to 8 reps, you don't have to control the eccentric for 3 seconds. But compare that to a hack squat, which gives you crazy stretch and also tension in the lengthened position with heavy fucking weights. You wouldn't just jump straight into that bottom of the position, but use a slower tempo to feel control of the weight. And also due to them doing ultra high reps, which are also not good for hypertrophy, I almost never perform or program jam presses myself, as I want to long head max my physique, but even I can move heavy weights on a jam press as its strength potential is fucking massive.
Volume equated, frequency doesn't matter much.
Yep.
However, because what you should be asking the question is, how do I arrange my training to get the most effective volume through the week?
Yeah.
And then splitting up into smaller volume units, but more frequency is probably better.
This is simply not true. If volume is equated, high frequency is much better than lower frequencies. Just 1 set performed 2 times per week will get you a better stimulus than 8 sets performed just 1 time per week. Literally every study that lets their subjects train with recoverable volume for their high frequency protocol shows that high frequencies are superior to lower frequencies, which means that higher frequencies must be better when volume is equated.
So if you can get 3 tricep workouts with 6 to 8 working sets for every single session, you get fucking high throughput, high energy, high everything.
This would never work in practice. To recover from 6 sets, you would need 5 to 7 days to recover from that volume. For a 2 times per week frequency, you can perform up to 2 to 4 sets, and with a 3 times per week frequency, like in a full body split, you would only need 1 set per session. Any more than that will simply not let you recover to the next session, which means that your maximum possible progressive overload potential will not be maximized, and therefore your maximum possible muscle growth potential also not. As you progressing by that 1 rep in your next session will not build you new muscle, but you have built new muscle tissue, and that therefore lets you add that 1 extra rep. So maximizing your progressive overload potential by choosing the right volume guidelines for your specific training frequency and also split is massively important and should not be neglected.
I think especially as you get more advanced too, the level of effort required is a little higher.
Yes.
And you need more weekly volume.
Weekly volume is a useless metric, as your body doesn't fucking care how much volume you do throughout the entire week. Your body just cares about you putting a stimulus for your body to grow new muscle, which can achieve by just 1 set. And as I said, you want to pick enough volume for your desired training frequency, which allows you to recover till your next workout, which means that per session volume is a much more important metric than weekly volume, as 3 sets for a muscle group, if you're training with 3 times per week frequency, would be better than doing 20 fucking sets in just 1 session.
We are into biceps, and the first exercise of 2 is going to be the lying dumbbell bicep curl. We want the maximum stretch at the very bottom.
So the biceps are one of the few muscle groups which benefit from training it in a stretch position, due to it having the best leverage, and therefore we get the best possible stimulus in that position, as the other elbow flexors, like the brachialis and brachioradialis, have a better leverage when training the biceps in the shortened position, which means that a lengthened bicep exercise is definitely better than a shortened bicep exercise for the biceps specifically. But this exercise is absolute bullshit, as you have to resist your arm from dropping completely backwards behind your body and keeping it at this neutral position to make the gravity do its thing and making the exercise in the hardest in stretch position, which means that your front delt will be involved to keep it in that isometric contraction, reducing the stimulus for the bicep specifically and making it an awkward experience. And besides that, this is a fucking awkward exercise to execute correctly. Literally, just perform any pre-trigger variation, which is the best fucking exercise for the biceps, whether that's a machine, which is the best possible option, if it's the hardest in the stretch position, like my machine is. If it is not, and it is the hardest in the short position, which is not good for the biceps, you want to do a free weight variation, like a dumbbell variation and also an easy bar, to make the exercise the hardest in the stretch position. No joke, this is the only exercise you will ever have to perform if you want to have huge biceps, as both heads of the biceps get maximum hit on a standard preacher curl, despite the arm position being in front of your body, as your biceps just cares about if you're flexing that fucking elbow and if the resistance profile is the hardest in the stretch position, as you don't get more of a stretch if it's behind your body due to the stretch not coming from the biceps itself, but from the shoulder joint. The biceps doesn't act like the triceps, where you need to have a fixed arm position to bice the long end of the triceps. It is not the same, and you don't have to worry about targeting the long end or short end of the biceps. It doesn't fucking matter if you're not on Ronnie Coleman's fucking level.
So it is a lying bicep curl.
This video is the prime example of exercise redundancy and therefore leading to junk volume, besides Dr. Mike doing junk volume in general. So it's the first tricep exercise. They're doing a weird version of a jam press, then another jam press. Now for the biceps, they're doing a lengthened bicep exercise, and here a shortened bicep exercise, which somewhat switches the resistance profile, but hear me out. They are performing 2 curls with a supinated grip, which biases the biceps instead of the other elbow flexors. Of course, the resistance profile here is the hardest in shoulder position, which naturally biases the brachioradialis. But why would you perform 2 exercises for the biceps? They're already cooked, they've gotten the stimulus, and you won't benefit from any more volume, as your body doesn't fucking care about volume. You should therefore just do a pronated shortened bias curl or a neutral grip shortened bias curl to bias the different areas of the elbow flexor complex, instead of doing 2 biceps exercises.
Reason number 1 is a minor reason, but it does add up. The axial fatigue from having to have the force transduced through your spine. You guys ever get back pumps from cable curls? I get them all the fucking time.
I bet you no one in the fucking world gets back pumps from bicep curls. But I suppose if you're Dr. Mike and you're performing your exercise with horrible form, even though you're teaching everyone to do slow eccentrics and have a perfect cyborg technique form, I assume I would have back pumps too if I was in his position.
You're gonna do some high reps at first, 15 to 20. We're not gonna rest long between sets, probably 30 seconds to 45 seconds.
Okay.
However, you're gonna have your first set be your kind of standardization set. Let's say you get 18 reps. On your second set, we need 18 again. You're not gonna be able to do it. Maybe you'll get 12. After you get 12, you come up, rack, breathe for about 5 seconds, come back, curl again. When that total gets to 18, then you're done. As many myo rep breaks as you need.
This is the worst possible technique intensifier you can use for muscle growth. The fatigue you'll build up by this stupid shit is fucking crazy. I've been yapping for too long. The upright row is not a bad side delt exercise per se. You will get a bit more upper trap involvement, especially if you're performing it like them, where they're getting all the way to the ears. We all know that lateral raises are sometimes a bitch to overload, and if you don't like standard overhead presses to overload the side delts, the upright row is a viable option.
Go. Slow. That was bullshit. Do it again. Fucking hopping on your goddamn calves, Jeff.
I hope Dr. Mike was joking here. Every time he does the upright row, he's yanking the weight up, he's rotating his torso because he has shitty fucking mobility. Don't talk to my pookie, Jeff, like that.
I think the pump is probably the best I've ever had.
Whoa.
Yeah, really, really good. To the point of discomfort.
Just because Jeff has gotten the craziest pump of his fucking life in this workout doesn't mean that the workout was magically hypertrophic. It just means that they did way too much volume, they did high fucking reps, stretched the fuck out every single muscle with super slow eccentrics, they did short rest, intensifiers, and everything that promotes a high fucking pump, which at the end of the day means that they've created so much fucking fatigue and muscle damage, you will need 10 fucking days to recover from that. I'm pretty damn sure that you got crazy amounts of golden tidbits in this video, but if you want to get even more and maximize your natural fucking potential, make sure to check out my website where I offer a one-to-one online coaching service, and or check out my programs, either individualized or pre-made for every type of muscle building goal you can think of. The links are down in the description and comments down below. See you in the next video.